To my left here, we have the moderator of the panel, Suzanne McConnell. Suzanne is a prize-winning fiction writer, teacher, and the fiction editor at the Bellevue Literary Review. She taught at Hunter College for 30 years, and for 5 years has been leading seminars in literature and medicine programs at hospitals. Suzanne studied with Kurt Vonnegut at the Iowa Writers' Workshop, where she earned her MFA, and she's writing a book about his advice on writing, Vonnegut's Pearls, to be published by Seven Stories Press. And then next to Suzanne is Tom Pyle. He's the founder and director of Psycho Odyssey Services, an education and consulting entity providing information, advice, advocacy, and networking to families navigating the maelstrom of mental illness. He's a member of the New Jersey Behavioral Health Planning Council and serves on the board of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, Mercer County. Tom is also a teacher of NAMI's Family to Family Education Program and a family monitor at Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. In his earlier career, Tom was a banker with Morgan Guarantee, Chase Manhattan, and Deutsche Bank, and worked and taught for Strathmore University in Kenya. Tom holds an MS in psychiatric rehabilitation from Rutgers, an MBA from Harvard, and a BA in history from Princeton. Then we have Nancy Gross. Nancy's worked at Overlook Hospital since 2005, serving as a palliative care community liaison and humanities scholar. In her role as a humanities educator, she works with resident physicians, hospital professional and support staff, community members, and patients, bringing humanities activities to support reflection and to evoke stories of illness and insight into illness experience. Nancy has taught writing at the City University of New York. She has a master's in medical humanities from Drew University and is continuing her education at Columbia University's narrative medicine program. And then we have the playwright, David Lee White. David's the Associate Artistic Director and resident playwright at Passage Theater in Trenton. He also runs the Passage Play Lab, which has aided in the development of plays by New Jersey-based playwrights. David's also the curator of the Writer University New Play Festival, a playwriting instructor at Playpen in Philadelphia, and he teaches dramatic analysis at Drexel University. David's written several plays familiar to audiences throughout the state, including Blood, a Comedy, Trenton Lights, Profiles, Slippery as Sin, White Baby, Real True Crime, Panther Hollow, If I Could in My Hood, I Would, Fire Girls, Urban Central, Get Off the Bus, and Baba Shayla. He's known for his interview-based plays, of which Sanism is the latest, and plays that confront Trenton history, race conflict, and inner city struggles. So now I'd like to turn it over to Suzanne to lead the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you all for staying with us. Before we begin the discussion, I want to inform you that we have all read the play. A couple of us have read it twice, but now we've heard it for the first time in acting, which changes it a bit. I'm going to open up the panel by asking the panelists to tell us 2 or 3 things that most resonated with you in this play, and to limit it to, not more than a couple of minutes. Tom?
Well, first, nice to be with you all, and thank you all for turning out. I first would like to thank all the sponsors of this for having us up here, New Jersey Council of Humanities, the Theater Alliance, and NJPAC for commissioning this wonderful play, and for all of you for partaking, particularly since the benefit is going to NAMI Mercer, a very good cause indeed. We can talk more about that later. So thank you all so much for all that you've done to make this possible. I've been asked to talk about what resonates with me, 2 or 3 quick things, and I'll just touch on these very quickly. Number one is the meds emphasis. that I heard in this play. Take your meds. Hurry up and take your meds. And there's a great expectation about taking your medications, which is partly true from the experience of this family member dealing with a loved one who has a psychiatric disability, and yet the meds can be so overwhelming, the side effects so debilitating, the fatigue so enervating that that resonated with me, and even more can be developed dramatically on that. The second resonance was the systems problems that I was hearing. The lawyer, Darrell, trying to get the papers together, the NEST program, getting the housing. And believe me, you do have to be homeless in order to be getting a homeless benefit. And the gyrations and the backflips that you have to do to get to that state are very vexing for family members and loved ones alike. I did take note about so much sex, and I'm wondering, is there so much of it? And if so, how did I miss so much of it along the way? And then the third point I would just leave you with is the interesting analysis, the interesting portrayal of the expectations of the others as relates to Ronnie, wanting her to do things, wanting to take things. And oftentimes, as is very true in my own experience, those expectations are often more than what the loved one can manage or rise to. And it does lead to frustration, and it's part of the very great challenge of working through problems in relationships, particularly when someone has a psychiatric disability. These are some initial resonances for me.
Thank you.
I think what was very interesting to me was plays are meant to be seen. So seeing this and hearing it and watching the staging of these very talented actors really made the play come alive for me that it didn't as much when I was reading it on paper. So I have a whole different impression of the characters and what they're engaged in through the seeing of the enactment. What resonated for me was the friendship between Val and Ronnie. Even more so than between Darrell and the women, although I loved, the multiple storylines going on. But I see this through the gaze of a friend who had a mentally ill, if that's what you want to call it. I don't, a person living with mental illness. So what resonated for me is that conflict within a friend, the love, the affection, the wanting to do for, to care for, to fix something that is not necessarily in our ability to fix. So that very much resonated for me. I also liked the journaling. I liked getting into Ronnie's head through her journal. There were multiple points of entry to understand these characters from their past, from their present, from their writing, from their interaction. So that resonated for me as well. And similarly, as Tom said, the conflicts of dealing with a system that doesn't work for people who are outside of the box in any way, the nonconformists, people who just don't fit. So that was strong for me, and I would like to even hear more of it as well.
Thank you. Okay, it's my turn. One of the things that resonated for me was the kind of sanity within Ronnie's character that comes and goes, and I thought that came across really well. She's a very strong character, and she's also manipulative. She uses her illness. She's pretending Val isn't Val, but then when Val starts to go, she says, yeah, and Val does that. That's what Val would do. No, recognizing that she's there. So, and I was thinking, because of doing my Vonnegut project, I read both Mark Vonnegut's books. I don't know if you know them, but he had a breakdown in his 20s, wrote a book about it. They thought it's all over, but of course it wasn't all over. He's a pediatrician, went to Harvard after that breakdown, but he had other ones. So he takes his medicine. But one of the things that he says is that even at his wildest, his most delusional, there were moments of lucidity, and that he hung on to those. So I thought Ronnie was portrayed very well in my own experience of, I've known several people who are mentally ill and had a neighbor who was, and I was always kind of intrigued by where is the line here. There's a great deal of similarity with just being neurotic, choosing to take your meds, choosing to deny it, to deny that you're delusional, and then owning up, yes, the cats are dead. That kind of thing was very, very accurate to me in the play, and mysterious, endlessly mysterious. I'm going to ask David a question now. Okay, my question is, the play is very artful in that it is not didactic. It doesn't hit you over the head with any message. But you're a playwright. You're trying to say something. So could you tell us 2 or 3 things you really want to get across?
Sure. I think it's difficult, first of all, because I think certainly in the process of writing this, you start writing about characters and you start writing about the world, and a lot of times those things that you want to get across, you don't necessarily start with them. You kind of discover them as you go. And so I feel like I'm still kind of discovering. But the things that I really want to get across is that there are people that suffer that we like to ignore. And I know that I feel like this is, people have been talking about this for centuries, but we're still ignoring the exact same people. And I think that art is really the only way, or one of the ways to tell their stories, so that we're not doing that. I also have known several people that suffer from mental illness. I had my own battle with depression when I was 25 that I've also done a show about, that I'm very public about. But I know someone very much like Ronnie, as well as several other people that I interviewed, for this piece. And I just feel like the taboo is ridiculous and silly, and I don't know why we can't discuss this as if it is just a genuine illness that needs to be dealt with. And I think that there are all these kind of metaphysical discomforts that people have when they talk about mental illness. And I understand that, but I think that we should get past them. I think that's the primary thing that I want to do with this piece.
Thank you. I'm going to respond to that, even though I said I was going to do something else, because I realized I only said one thing, so I happened to see a program on public television just after I read your play, and it was, I don't have my nice little notes here. It was about, what? Yes, that was it. Say it again. Riding the Tiger, yes. It was really, really well done and interesting, and it was about, and you can help me since you saw it, it was about the brain. It was about breakthroughs in manipulating the brain. It featured one woman who was incredibly depressed, and she has a wire. It's like a pacemaker. It's something she wears continually that stimulates her brain, and she said it allowed it. I had her wonderful phrase written down somewhere, but now I don't know where it is. But it allowed her to live. It said it didn't make her happy. It made her have normal emotions. And I think the reason, back to Mark Vonnegut, is I'm very interested in the difference between somebody who's ashamed and somebody who's not, because I know very well both types of being mentally ill. Mark isn't. I mean, he's written 2 books about it. He's a pediatrician. He really sees it as a physical problem. It's an illness. It's an illness. Okay, should I do this, or we'll discuss for a while, and then I'll switch to my other part, since we seem to be wanting to talk.
Oh,
I'm looking at...
I was thinking a lot about the shame. I think we start by Daryl saying, I went into her house and you wouldn't have believed it, and what he was confronted with. And that reality of someone who's become somewhat unhinged and isn't keeping it together in the way that we on the outside feel that they should be keeping it together, and the guilt that Val feels for not having done more earlier on when, I mean, she was only a teenager herself, but I think that there's the guilt that we friends and loved ones feel about not having intervened or not having helped or not having been there in an effective way, and the shame and the hiding we all do. The person living with mental illness and those around. There's a lot of hiding, a lot of secrecy, and unless they're acting out of their normal self, because they can code switch, they can do both. They can be conformist and nonconformist, and I like that raising of the shame and the guilt and all of the emotions surrounding.
So I was going to do one more format, and then we'll discuss some more, and then I'll open it up to the audience. So panelists, what would you want to see more of in this play, or clarified?
What would I like to see more of? As I say, the seeing and the read, I thought I could have answered that question differently from just the reading, but the seeing gave me a lot more that I wanted. I loved seeing Ronnie. I also loved Janine, and I loved her straightforwardness. So I guess I'd like to maybe see more articulation of the frustration of how we are present with people whom we love, who, I'll look to Tom for the right term. I mean, for people living with, mental illness, how can we be with them in a loving, productive, compassionate way? How can we accompany them with accepting our own frustration, our own feelings of impotence? So I don't know if that would come out by actual language, by characters saying that, or by them demonstrating it. But I think there's an internal struggle for those of us who are trying to be with people we love who are living with mental illness. So I guess I'd like more of that.
Yeah, I resonate with that particularly. There's the awkwardness, if you like, and the earnestness of the friends trying to help, not being able to, and then Daryl, when he was expressing his frustration to the point of just quitting. That's a familiar feeling, and yet that's one we all have to transcend, especially for the sake of the loved one. So there's more in the play that could be drawn out to help to build the tension that this is for families and their loved ones. Other things that I might like to see more, I wrote a note called schizoaffectiveness. What is this thing called schizoaffectiveness? I know this very well. My loved one has this, and it is a very complex combination of depression and schizophrenia. And so I was amused when Daryl said that it's a splash of, it's bipolar with a splash of schizophrenia. I can tell you it's a tsunami. It's much more than that, than just a dash of this and a dash of that. And there is an opportunity, I think, to draw out, perhaps with soliloquies of Ronnie talking more about what's actually happening in her head, to express that she is very articulate in the play. She's very intelligent, obviously, as many people are in such circumstances. But to hear more of what she's expressing in her own soliloquy would be helpful. And that could include the effect of the medications, because one impression I had is that with the heavy medications that go with this, it's a very unusual person who can then also be as energetic and as lucid and as chirpy and as chipper. That's not always the case, and there may be an opportunity to show the flat affect, as people call it, or the deflation of spirit that comes with that, and then the friend's reactions to that, and how do you work through that? That can be very heavyweight. And finally, the experience of being whisked away. So many times with these psychiatric disabilities, there are moments, like, say, when Ronnie is taken to the crisis center, and then from there to the Harrison House, and then from there to the Pensy, and then from there onward. There is this constant feeling of a loved one who is being whisked away by the system, just removed from one place, shifted to another. The system moves them around, and that is an experience that can be developed further. And finally, I would be remiss, obviously, if I didn't refer to the family experience, which is what the NAMI experience is all about. This family, as you portrayed it, has its own challenges, its own issues, that raises the possibility of other trauma that might have been occurring in the family that could be somewhat catalytic to whatever had happened to Ronnie. But then also there's great drama to be drawn into, even through third-party reference, the tension that occurs in the family, the struggle, the despair that can arise, and yet I must also emphasize the triumph and the hope that arises in the end. When the families get themselves stabilized, they themselves get well networked and begin to have success with the loved one. And I'm sure there's some others in the audience who have some personal experiences that could also perhaps articulate that better than I can.
Thank you. What I wanted more of wasn't so much to do with the real issues, especially hearing it acted after. It's true, it comes much more alive than. But I think you changed a few things. I don't know.
Always.
Yeah, yeah. From the one I read, yeah. So I don't remember. Tell me if the speech, because this could be just me missing it, the speech that Val gives, a very passionate speech she gives, and I think she's young when she gives this speech, when she's 18, about, I'm going to live my own life, I have to do this myself, blah, blah, blah. That speech, was that there before?
It was, but it has changed a lot.
Yeah, it's more, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that deepened the issue that you brought up, Nancy, about the role of someone who cares or loves someone who's mentally ill. That boundary. I mean, it's a huge boundary. It's Cain and Abel boundary. It's, am I my brother's keeper? It's a very huge question, and it's a question we have all the time about everything. But this is a very huge question here. So I wanted more of, why is Val leaving LA right now to come fly across the country, leave her lucrative ad job, the friends that at the beginning of the play she says she's made, but at the end of the play she says she doesn't have any. I just don't quite buy why she would do that. Maybe I would buy it more, and I did as hearing it. But when I heard about the suicide attempt, because no one wants to have someone's life on their hands. So I think if that were clear to me as an issue, I would believe it. But it's such a sticky issue. Most people, they want to close the door.
Right.
So it's a huge question.
Yeah. Good.
Suzanne.
We're ready for Q&A. Okay, I can't see out there. Yeah, would you come to the microphone?
Yeah, there's a microphone right here in the center. If you could come and speak into the microphone, appreciate it.
Would you say your name first, too?
David Leon, and I'm the manager of...
Closer, we can't hear you.
I'm David Leon, and I'm the manager of a community wellness center in Elizabeth. And I think I would like to give you kudos for bringing this out in the open. I think the play touched on many different issues like the guilt that the friends experiences. Ronnie, I think he was sort of in the background in some ways, but he was the beacon of hope for Ronnie throughout the play. He was the one who maintained the hope and coordinated her care and stuff like that. It touched on the balance that the friends and families has to strike between moving on and still being there for Ronnie. And also, like you mentioned, like Ronnie has a sexual life that's oftentimes not even mentioned. So I like the idea of bringing this out into the open, talking about it, because I think ignorance is one of the most detrimental things for mental illness and addictions. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
I actually spoke with a writer, I think for New York Magazine, is Michael Purl, and he's been doing a lot of research on the sexual lives of people suffering from mental illness, in some case severe mental illness, and he said that he has found that it's something that very few people want to talk about and even want to acknowledge exists, because it is such a such a hotbed of frustration to figure out where the line is. Should we let people with severe mental illnesses have sex? How do we stop it? And he said it's a very tricky topic. So I'm very interested to hear you bring that up. Yes.
Who's going to stop them?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Steve Geiger, New Jersey Theater Alliance and Passage Theater. And David, this is real important work you're doing. This is what we need to be talking about. My question is, what we often do in these kinds of conversations is we decide, okay, the effect of drugs takes away these effects that harm people. But what also often happens is we lose that person we come to know and love. And I'd like to see that conversation happen more, the discussion about that trade-off. Mm-hmm. What are we getting? There's always a balance. I have people in my family who we take the balance too far. And that's a conversation that's happening within the families, I know, at least in ours. And it's an important thing we need to always talk about is, where are we going with this? Are we losing the person we love just so we can cope with them better and the public can cope with them better? That's the conversation I think we need to talk about.
Because Ronnie says no, strongly says no, but we don't really know why she's saying no.
Yeah.
No for taking the drugs?
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't articulate why she's so strong in her no. We can, not everything obviously has to be said, but I take that's a good point in discussing the feelings around how you change.
Please.
Mental illness.
Excuse me, can you come up and lower the mic a little bit and introduce yourself, please? Thank you.
I am Cherrie Warner. I suffer with 2 illnesses I'm battling. One of them is breast cancer, skin cancer, and a severe depression. I am on many medicines for cancer, so I remain in remission. But I've been hospitalized in the past year twice for symptoms of suicide. And I had 2 attempts. And I cut the veins in my back till I almost bled to death. And the pain got so bad all the way through my whole body, because I have reactions from 6 months' worth of radiation to kill the cells. I'll tell you, people, it killed the good cells plus the bad cells.
Did you think that the play helped to portray and to dramatize your own personal experience?
It took years to understand that the cancer's gone. And eventually, when I'm well, I hope to be a breast cancer advocate. I am now cancer-free, in remission for 5 years. But I can't believe it yet. It doesn't sink in yet. And this is a rough time of year for me. I lost both parents 6 years apart from this disease, bone cancer. And I tell you, every time my bones hurt, I'm scared to death. Every day.
Did you feel the play reflected the kinds of fear that you've experienced?
Yeah, I wanted to die. I didn't care what happened anymore. The medications didn't work for long. I told my social workers, this is not how I want to live. I've been functional. My body is shot. It ain't going to go no more. You're giving me all these pills, but you're not giving me a reason to live.
Yeah.
That is a very insightful point that I think we have to all remember, and it's part of the challenge that all loved ones and families
That's the pain we
have.
go through.
We have to have a reason to live.
We're so ashamed to tell everybody.
But your presence here, may I affirm,
Yes.
is evidence aplenty of the reason for hope in the struggle with psychiatric disability. I really salute you as a hero.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I cry every night.
You're not alone. That's what we're all here.
Thank you.
So just hang around, all right?
Okay.
Hi, overwhelming. Hi, my name is Robert Hedden. I'm a colleague of Tom Pyle. I'm a board member of the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Mercer County. I'm a person affected by bipolar disorder.
Raise the mic a little bit closer.
You're tall.
You're tall.
I'm not an actor, so I have to compete with these great actors today in the writing, which was done very well. I was really blown away by the storyline, and I can relate as a family member and also a person living with mental illness, and also a friend of individuals with mental illnesses. So each character, something in them I could relate to, which was good. I liked that Janine had a mental illness, and it was sort of like a mentorship or something. You could see more of a positive portrayal. You see the illness, but then also the wellness part, that you can have a decent, successful job. And but I think it was done really well. I come across, I speak at TPH, Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. I do a lot of public speaking about mental illnesses, and I come across a lot of the same things. We were talking about the medications and the side effects, and it seems like there's a revolving door of people on them, and then because of side effects, they go off or they feel better, and it's very sad. And they were talking about the balancing act. I always say, like, what do you prefer? Do you want to keep going back to a psychiatric institution, or do you want to be home? And it is that balancing act of even with myself as well, with medications, it's like, the side effects or the illness. And in my circumstance, like, my manias aren't really that bad, but the depressions are really bad. So the crash to the depression, so I'd rather give up my manias for not having had this horrible, severe depressions like my friend or that was here earlier said. So, but yeah.
The Riding the Tiger program was so interesting about that, saying that medication is too slow for people who are desperate, and really saying if there was much more funding going into this kind of research, they'd figure stuff out, and they'd figure some medicine out in some ways, like the thing I can't remember that connects into the brain for depression.
Are there things, Robert, in your experience beyond medications that you have found helpful to your psychiatric disability?
I think, like the woman before me, I think a good support system is the most important thing. Having friends and loved ones, and there's people that care about you, that you can trust, that sometimes see things in yourself that you don't see, and a willingness to be open to their suggestions and trust them. And I think it's a good relationship with all parties involved. I think that's one of the most important things. Having my illness since I was 17, like the character at a younger age, I'm able to understand it better now. And in the beginning, I didn't understand my manias, because as opposed to my depressions where you just sleep in bed and feel horribly, the manias were productive and really good. So it's hard to recognize that's a bad thing. But I realized that it's an up and down type of thing. And like many people in the beginning, I wasn't diagnosed properly. I was diagnosed with major depression with underlying anxiety disorder. Hence, 20 medications later, and ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy. And they said I had refractory depression, which basically is hard to treat depression. And then they found out that I was really bipolar and put on mood stabilizers. And I've been well once I was finally diagnosed properly and given the right medication. And also, too, with the therapy as well. understanding and coping skills. Medications is only one aspect of being treated for mental illness. But
How long did that process take?
oh, many, many years, over 10 years to be diagnosed properly. Yeah, so it's. I think bipolar is really interesting because a lot of these illnesses mimic so many other types of illnesses. And for my circumstance, when I first went, I didn't know what to do, and I thought, I know I'm taking a lot of time, sorry, but I was taking different medications, and I thought I had a physical condition because I couldn't function, and I thought I had like mononucleosis or a thyroid condition because I had no energy. But when I was finally diagnosed, they put me on like the monoamine oxidase inhibitors, everything. But basically, I was given medication based on what I expressed to my psychiatrist at that moment.
So you think the play hits it for?
I think it really did. I mean, there's some improvements that you had mentioned, but all in all, I think it was really done beautifully. So thank you, I appreciate it.
I want to tell
Just a quick question. At the end, Ronnie takes that swig.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to explore that a little. That was the first indication. I mean, well, they were drinking when they were in high school, but I don't know if there's something there to explore a little bit with mental illness and substance abuse issues. I don't know if that resonates.
I want to tell a little story about my good friend who kept having breakdowns. She would go off her meds and start taking coke and having crazy guys over and wrecking everything. And then she would be hospitalized. And this happened maybe 5 or 6 times. And then she came home once, and there was a small program at St. Vincent's Hospital that was a talk therapy, a group therapy. She'd never had that. All she'd gotten was meds. Then, from there, she did a brilliant thing. I admire this woman so much. She went to AA. She's not an alcoholic at all. She went to AA because there's a support system in AA. And she went, and she's never had another breakdown. And that's been 10, 12 years. She's married. She's the character. If you read my story, that's the end of that story. So I have more stories to write about her. I think it's amazing. I really admire her. System doesn't give her support. She got herself some support. Questions, more stories.
Hi, I'm Alan. When I was 14 years old, I was in a coma for a month and a half. I lost 7 years of my memory because when I was 14 years old, I was pushing the car from the back, helping my brother-in-law get the car off the highway. The van come 50 miles an hour, smashed me through the car into the car engine. And I lost 7 years of my memory. Can't rewrite a spell due to the government, the way they have the system built to help individuals like me. I wind up getting my CDLs. I wind up getting my my TDLs. Transportation Distribution Legislated. I had a 4.0 on that. I went to ShopRite. I got a high honor certificate. The highest honor of cleaning, 90. That's the highest you can get at cleaning. I went to ShopRite. I got the same thing. I got another certificate from there. From Bridgeway House. I worked at Bridgeway House. I drove for Bridgeway House, supervised for Bridgeway House, and got the highest honor there. And I thank God that at the present time I met my significant other, that she was bipolar, and I met her, and I dealt with her for at least 8 years. And every winter time she puts me out. But I understand.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I understand when.
Why not the summer?
I did some research on bipolar because due to the fact is they like light switches. You get them mad and
Turn it on.
you gotta go, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and I was always a yes ma'am. So I put up with that, and still to this day I love her. She put me out again, but I still love her.
Tell us your name again. What's your name, sir?
Alan Rodriguez.
So did you think the play pulled it together for you? Did it resonate for you?
Well, I mean, the play has touched me a lot because, I recently was walking from Trinitas Hospital, walking down the street, and some lady asked me for a cigarette. And the next thing you know, she gives me her number, so I gives her a call to see how she's doing. And the next thing you know, I realized when she was talking to me, she was bipolar too. And then every time she calls me, she needs help. She calls me at 11 o'clock at night, tells me that she got to go to the hospital. So I go to the hospital and see how she's doing. And she tells me, well, you know what? It ain't never nobody did this for me. But I'm saying I understand your point of view. And, you need people in your life to care. You know what I mean?
And you mentioned Bridgeway House, which is one of the eminent community mental health service agencies. Shout out to Bridgeway. It's a good outfit. They're doing good work, and you are clearly one of their success stories.
And I'm from New Beginnings too.
New Beginnings is here. Oh, great. Good stuff.
Dave has helped me quite a bit too. Far as handling my responsibilities, and I'm taking several courses now. I'm joining up to take courses in carpentry, courses in electricity, and courses in plumbing, and etc.
Sounds great.
Thank you
so much, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one more.
Hi. Okay.
We have time for two more.
My name is Joyce, and I'm dealing with an older sister who has, I guess, recently become schizophrenic. And one of the things that really hit home with your play to me was when the friends were told that they were the front line, and that without that support, that the main character did not have anybody. And it's the struggle that I have as a sister of somebody who is ill is that she doesn't see that she's ill. And she's constantly trying to get me to buy into her delusion. And some of that went on in the play, but not to the extent that I truly experience it in terms of that unless I buy in and unless anybody else buys in, they're the enemy. Right. So then although I am the lifeline, I become pushed out because I can't agree with her delusions.
Yeah. So the play was very accurate in that way.
Yes, it was accurate, but
could go further.
Could go even further because there was some struggle with a friend where she was saying, "Yeah, I don't see you're crazy. I'm not agreeing with everybody else that you're crazy." But really, what the main character wanted was to be heard, to be validated. And how do you deal with that struggle of trying to help somebody who's clearly delusional and who is saying crazy things, but and isn't listening to the sane part?
That's a great note. Thank you.
Yes.
It's great.
Go ahead.
So 2 quick points from my experience. Yeah. There's a word for this lack of insight called anosognosia. Anosognosia, technical term. And there's a means by which then to deal with anosognosia called motivational interviewing and empathetic listening. There's a practitioner of this practice called Xavier Amador, and he's written a book that helps families enormously to get on the side of the loved one, even in the midst of their delusionality, and bring them on board while still working them towards a constructive end. So building the trust. I can talk to you afterwards about that resource. You've touched on it.
Could you repeat the name of that again?
The name of there's a book called I Am Not... I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help. And the author is Xavier Amador. He's a psychologist at Columbia. And he has perfected a tactic called LEAP: listen, empathize, accept, and partner. And that takes work. And we saw in the play Daryl struggling with this and, backing off, getting pissed off, when indeed the challenge is to meet the person where they are and to be in their world. I can't tell you how many times I've been to Nibiru, the ninth planet, and have talked about the Anunnaki and conspiracies and all the rest. So I'm very familiar with all of this, as many people are, but that's where my loved one is, and so I have to be as well. And yet I also have to keep nudging him along towards, as I like to say, I am the one who sees what's going on the others, on the outside of your brain, and you are on the inside of the brain. We have to partner together.
Just one more quick thing is that the person who was ill is dealing with a tremendous stigma. They don't want to be known as mentally ill. And that's something I didn't quite see the character saying straight out, I'm not crazy, you're crazy. Not enough to hear that, because they do not want to bear that stigma of mental illness.
She says it, though.
Thank you.
She said it in some way, but it's just,
More.
Go
it's,
further.
yeah, it could.
Thank you. That's a great note.
Okay, just a second.
Right. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go over very quickly one more person. We're a little past time, but go ahead.
My name is Ken.
Raise it up, though.
My name is Ken, and I identified with the play. I thought it was good. The fact that it seemed like she started getting symptoms when she was 18, and she knew she was getting symptoms, but she didn't know what the source of it was. Mm-hmm. And it was all jumbled up. I related to something that one of the woman Janine said. It's not something that's going to, you can throw money at and it's just going to all go away. Mm-hmm. And I like the idea that at some point her friends had to give her tough love. But they had to say to her, you can't keep doing this and, have a life. And when they gave her that love, even though she wasn't willing to listen at first, she did listen, and that was the hope. And I mean, from my experience, I did a lot of rebelling. I did a lot of, resist denial, whatnot. But I've come to a place where I now follow through with my medication, even though there's no compelling force to make me go take my medication. And I live in an apartment that's subsidized but not supervised, and I'm beginning to get my life back.
Good for you. That's great.
We can. Thank you very much.
Professional support.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I think we could stay here for another half an hour, but unfortunately, we are at the end. Thanks so much.
Thank you.